Welcome back to our podcast. Today we have the author of Generations with us. Thank you for joining us. Let's dive deeper into your fascinating book. First off, what was the main inspiration behind Generations? Were there specific books, movies, or real-life events that sparked the idea for this story?
Yeah, definitely. So the inspiration behind it, Generations, I've been a fan of science fiction all my life, read all the classics, all the modern ones. And on the professionalist side, I've been mainly writing screenplays. So when I set out to write Generations, I was really interested in the society, kind of an enclosed society depiction, a society that's been in space for 8 generations, that's almost 200 years in the book. So beyond the technical achievement of how do you fling a generation ship across the galaxy to another planet, my main inspiration was how do you actually craft a society that's stable, that's positive, that can last when do you have money on board? Do you have scarcity that might lead to friction, but also motivation? If everything is in abundance, that's less risky, but it might lead to stagnation. How does the society norms, how does language evolve, how does family structures, morals, values. So a lot of these aspects are very interesting to capture in the context of generation ship, because it's kind of an enclosed capsule that needs to last, first and foremost for survival. But then also, when you reach the target planet, you want to have a society that's actually flourishing, stable, being able to resettle properly on the new planet. So it has to preserve the skill set and the knowledge. And that became a very interesting first research, and then, of course, story.
That's a deeply thought out concept. It must have been fascinating to explore all those societal aspects. Given the complex social structures and challenges on the generation ship, how did you approach world building in Generations?
So for me, first and foremost, I really wanted it to be believable. So I did months upon months of research, have a scientific background, I have an artificial intelligence background, I studied astrophysics. So I kind of, I'm kind of not afraid to dive into deep research in these areas. So for me, no aliens, no warp drives, no wormholes. So everything has to work, at least if not in today's conceptual technology, then an extrapolation of that. So space travel takes time, resources are limited, humans will always be humans. So there's that aspect. So the whole world building was a very important part for me. I wanted it to be as believable as possible while exploring opportunities or risks or aspects that you don't encounter here on Earth and could be unique to the settings that are depicted in the book. So I really wanted the reader to be immersed in a world that's definitely imaginable as being able you to be able to live on.
Your dedication to realism in world building certainly adds depth to the story. With such a well researched and believable setting, how did you balance the technical aspects of space travel and societal evolution with the human stories and mysteries that drive the plot?
Yeah, so story always comes first, characters and stories, and we're not, you're not diving into a technical or scientific lecture when you're opening a book. You want to be entertained, you want to have believable characters, round characters, people that you relate to, that you feel for, that you are afraid when they are afraid, that you feel emotion for. So the plots and the world building and the characters all need to support each other. So whenever I needed to go into a bit of explanation, either from the scientific side, technology side, or just like background history or background story, how did we get there and why did things evolve as they did? I tried to do it in a kind of a most entertaining way. And I think the influence of being a screenwriter was really helpful there, because in movies, the flashback scene is always a problematic scene, and the exposition scene, when you need to explain the world to the viewer before diving into the stories, is always a big challenge of how do you do exposition without boring the audience with too much detail or too much background before we kick off to the real story. So there, I think I try to weave it a lot, even at the expense or even at the risk of the story advancing a little bit faster than the reader follows. So you need to play catch up a little bit, and something that are presented as granted, for granted as they are, and you need to understand the reason as you read along. But I think that's a little bit of a challenge that actually makes the story more interesting, and you have, you need to figure out stuff as you read along.
It sounds like you've put a lot of thought into balancing the technical and narrative elements. Your experience as a screenwriter definitely shines through in how you approach storytelling. Speaking of characters, can you tell us more about your lead character in Generations? What drives her, and how does she evolve throughout the story?
Sure. So the lead character is Sandrine Liet. She is a 28-year-old timid introvert archivist. She works at the main archive of the Generation Ship. So she's like this history nerd, technology nerd. She likes the old archive records, the old language, the old stories. Really content with her quiet life and obscure life in the archive. She isn't looking for any fame or glory or anything. And she stumbles across the investigation that propels the plot. The mystery investigation, which turns out to be quite a big conspiracy that's been lurking for generations behind the scene of all the political scene of the Generation Ship. So she's driven mainly by a personal purpose or cause. She really wants to be a mother, which is kind of surprising. She's not this kick-ass female heroine you'd see in sci-fi. She isn't wielding laser guns. She's a hard-boiled detective seeking the truth at all costs. I mean, throughout the whole story, whenever she advances in the investigation, she understands she is risking herself, she's risking her future, she's risking her interests maybe even. So, she's dragged into this investigation, even though this is definitely counterproductive for her own purposes, place in life, and what she wants for herself. So I think this tension is what makes her vulnerable, scarred, and interesting adventure.
Sandrine Liet sounds like a deeply layered and relatable protagonist. Her unique position as an archivist and her personal motivations add a fresh perspective to the story. It sounds like Sandrine's evolution was quite organic. I'm curious, as she navigates this intricate conspiracy, how does her background as an archivist help her unravel the mysteries aboard the Generation Ship? Does her unique skill set play a pivotal role in the story?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, basically. So first of all, I think she's the main aspect of her character is she's skeptical. So she doesn't take anything for granted, let alone what the administration is trying to instill with the population or the truth they want to spin out. So she's always inquisitive. She's always looking for the deeper truth, the deeper sources. She's she's sticking her nose into stuff even deeper than is needed most of the time, which in the past has damaged her. And this is part of the reason why she's very hesitant to go into this investigation. She's already been scarred by a former friction with the administration because of stuff that she did that was a little bit out of bounds, involving her ex-partner, and I won't spoil this part of the plot. But definitely the tension between her own moral values, which are very, very deeply instilled in her. She wants to do what's right. She wants to do what's right for her personally, and also for the society and for the sake of humanity, if we can go bigger than this. But she knows that she's going to suffer costs, and she plows ahead regardless. So that's, should be admired for her.
Sandrine's skepticism and moral compass add significant depth to her character. Her inner conflict and past experiences make her journey even more compelling. How do you think readers will relate to Sandrine, given her unique blend of strengths and vulnerabilities?
So I hope people will empathize with her. I think that's the best result I can hope for. So she's by no means perfect. She's by no means a hero. She's, imperfect and flawed and making bad decisions and sometimes being too hard than she needs to, or she's but she's smart and she's funny and she's compassionate and she has deep moral values that she will not compromise on any of them. And I hope readers will eventually see her as a role model, precisely because she's a round character and she's an imperfect character. And she could be your best friend, and you'd have criticism over what she's doing and over her decisions, but eventually you understand her reasoning and where she comes from, and that's a pure place.
Sandrine's imperfections make her relatable, and her strong moral values make her admirable. Wrapping up our interview, what message or themes do you hope readers take away from Generations?
So first of all, even though it's like a conspiracy story and with some quite dark revelations, at the end of the day, it's a story of hope. So I hope readers will take the hopeful message out of it, that basically our future is in our hands. We can make it beautiful and utopian and egalitarian and tolerant, and we can make it ugly and utilitarian and abusive. And you can see those examples, both examples, all around you. Sadly, the latter more than the former. So I hope the final message is a positive one in terms of hope, of agency. We can craft our own future, either here on Earth as much as in space. The whole science fiction setting is, of course, a very good excuse to distance yourself a little bit from the perspectives that we are surrounded by, so we can kind of tell this story and think about those outcomes and those values kind of in a detached mode, but they're definitely a reflection of our own experience here and now. So I'm very hopeful that this story will stick in people's minds as kind of not only as a cautionary tale, but actually as an inspirational tale.
That's a powerful and inspiring message. Generations sounds like it offers both a thrilling story and a profound reflection on our potential as a society. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and for taking us behind the scenes of your book. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. To our listeners, make sure to pick up a copy of Generations and immerse yourself in this captivating story.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure and really, really surprising interview in terms of quality, interaction, and fun, basically. So thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for the kind words. It was a pleasure interviewing you and diving into the world of Generations. Best of luck with your book, and I'm sure our listeners are excited to read it. Have a great day.